All right. Well, welcome everybody this afternoon to this press conference. Appreciate you coming. Appreciate my fellow members on both sides of the aisle who've come to join me in this announcement. Today on the floor at 4 o'clock, we're going to submit 5 different bills that have to do with gaming. 4 of them will be filed individually, and then the last one, which will be House Bill 610, will roll all 4 of them one into an omnibus bill. 3 bills I'm going to file individually. The other one, Representative Killian Timoney is going to file. Which side is he on here? Right. There he is, right there. And they are as follows. One will be the sports betting legalization bill, very similar to bills I have filed in the past that will allow for wagering on sports in Kentucky legally. Take it away from the bookies and the offshore accounts, and give people of Kentucky the ability to do what they would like to do with their own money, as well as give them the protections that they deserve from their government to make sure that everything's done on the up and up and in a proper fashion. Next is the parimutuel modernization bill that came from last year's HHR discussion and a desire to see more revenue generated for the general fund from these machines. We addressed that, as well as many other things that were discussed in the parimutuel task force that myself and Senator Thayer co-chaired over the past year. Some of the highlights of that are we're going to generate new revenue mainly 3 ways. One, the Horse Racing Commission is going to be required to start being self-sufficient. We've been spending $3 million a year to subsidize their operations, and that's not a knock, that's just a reality. And we have the opportunity now with all these HHR machines to levy fees on them so that they are self-sufficient. That's going to save the general fund $3 million a year. We are going to make all of the wagers on parimutuel the same. So right now, if you bet on what's called an ADW, like the Twin Spires app here in Kentucky, there's some other apps, but we're just going to talk about the Kentucky-based one. On an ADW, the Twin Spires app, that is taxed at 0.5%. Now, if you wager on an HHR machine or live at a track on a race that's happening, that's taxed at 1.5%. If you wager on a simulcast race, so you go to a track and you wager on a race that's going on somewhere else, that's taxed at 3%. We're going to make all those the same. Everything's going to be taxed at 1.5%. So we'll lose a little bit in simulcast, but that's a very small part of the market. We're going to generate $4 million from raising the ADW tax from 0.5% to 1.5%. So that's money that will go into the general fund. And then part of those taxes on live and HHR, they go to the Kentucky Thoroughbred Development Fund, the Standardbred Development Fund, which have been enormous successes in the last few years with the increase in HHR, and they will continue to increase as the HHR facilities open, they expand, and the market matures. From that point, we're going to put in caps. So when you reach $40 million into the Kentucky Thoroughbred Development Fund or $20 million in the Standardbred Development Fund, the amount that goes in is going to go from 0.75 to 0.35. We're still going to fill those coffers, but we're just going to fill them less quickly. The money that would have gone in the Thoroughbred Development Fund will then start going into the general fund. We estimate in 2 or 3 years when the market becomes mature, that's going to generate $20 million a year. So you package all that together, you're looking at $27 million into the general fund, in addition to the increases we're going to see in general fund dollars. Just as an example, in 2019 and 2020, general fund got $18 million from parimutuel wagering. In 2021, however, it got $41 million. That's from the vast increase in HHR. The machines are expanding. I think the number is it's going to eventually double in the next 2 or 3 years. And so we expect that $41 million to probably go up to something like 60, maybe even higher. So this $27 million is going to be on top of that expansion and those additional funds. So in addition to that, in the pari-mutuel wagering bill, there's a lot of other good things that we can get into, but the one I'm most excited about is breakage, where you will be paid as a bettor to the penny. For those of you who are familiar with racing, if you go to the track and you bet on a horse to win, place, show, whatever it is, you get paid in 20-cent increments, and it rounds down. And that is something that made sense 100 years ago, but it doesn't make sense today, especially in the world of ADWs. So you're going to get paid to the penny. As I said plenty of times, especially during our task force meetings, when we legalized HHR, we took care of the breeders, we took care of the horsemen, we took care of everyone who makes the races go except for the bettors. And we were going to do something about that, and this is what we do. It will also make Kentucky the most attractive place for horse players to come and bet all across North America. So that will generate additional revenue for the general fund through larger handles. And when you're putting more money back into the bettors' pockets, some of that's going to get wagered again, and that will generate even more money for the general fund. So. And last but not least, we have the gray machine bill. I think everybody is, I'm sorry, not last but not least. Third is the gray machine bill with Representative Timoney, and I will yield to him here in a second when I get through all of the bills. But to deal with the proliferation of these machines throughout Kentucky. And last but not least, I have a problem gaming bill that I will be filing that will address the issue that we have no requirements in Kentucky for problem gaming, whether it's awareness, treatment, prevention. None of this is required to be done in Kentucky. And last year we had a 10-year lawsuit that came to an end with Poker Stars, is what it's commonly referred to, the Poker Stars lawsuit. They were eventually purchased by Flutter, so it also goes by that. But we got a $225 million deposit from that lawsuit into our general fund for basically allowing illegal gaming in Kentucky. What better use of that money than to put it to problem gaming? So we create a trust that deals with that issue, that makes sure it's managed, all those things are taken care of on behalf of the Commonwealth. And if managed properly, and I believe it will be, we'll probably take care of our problem gaming needs for centuries, if not in perpetuity. So I'm excited about that. It'll probably be the most robust program in America. So let me step aside and let Representative Timoney talk about his bill.
Thank you, Chairman Koenig. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very excited to be filing today our gray machine bill. Obviously, Representative Koenig has already discussed a little bit about how I wasn't going to use the word proliferate. I was going to say spread like wildfire. Every community in Kentucky has been impacted by these gray machines, and they come in. They come to challenge some of our already established, accepted charitable gaming opportunities, as well as lottery opportunities. And we need to make sure that we give the people of Kentucky the opportunity to weigh in on this particular type of gaming. One message that we are going to send clearly with this bill is that when dealing with Kentucky, particularly with gaming, asking for forgiveness instead of permission is something that we don't like from a policy standpoint. And we want to make sure we send that message to any industry that wants to come here to have access to our citizens, that they need to follow the process. And we have industries that have gone by the process, and this is one that definitely has quite a big gray area surrounding legality or implementation. So we wanted to make sure that we close that up. and proceeded cautiously. You know, that's one of the things that we want to make sure that anytime we do any type of expanded gaming, that we proceed cautiously, and we have a plan in place for all of the aspects of it. And that's not currently happening, and we need to go ahead and put that as priority number one. Thank you.
I would like to recognize the members who are here: Representative Jonathan Dixon, Representative Susan Westrom, Representative Matt Cook, floor leader, Representative Joni Jenkins, Representative Timoney, Representative Thomas Huff, and my partner on the Democrat side for years now on these issues, Representative Al Gentry, who I really appreciate his steadfastness and sticking with me and working with me all these years. So, and we play golf together. So, with that, I'm open to questions.
Do you need 38 Republicans for your bills, especially sports betting?
That is the way it's always been, and I imagine that will be the same, but we will see. I don't see why that would change on this one.
Can this be purely done in the legislature, or do you think it will also require a constitutional amendment that will require Kentucky voters to weigh in?
I don't believe this requires a constitutional amendment at all. For sports betting specifically, I think is what you're asking about. And we've had these debates in committee. Had a great expert come in named Daniel Wallach, who's a national expert on this topic. And if you go back to the Constitutional Convention discussions of 1890, I think it was, we found the discussion about the prohibitions on games of chance, which is why we needed a lottery amendment to allow the state to engage in games of chance. And someone added an amendment to it, wanted to add an amendment to it, that said we're going to outlaw all forms of gaming, period. And that went down. So it was clear that the framers of the Constitution wanted that the Constitution to only reflect outlawing games of chance, not games of skill. I'm sure one day a court will be the ultimate arbiter of that, but I firmly believe that we do not need a constitutional amendment.
You tried to pass the sports betting bill for a while now. What makes this year different as far as the atmosphere in Frankfurt?
Well, in 2019 and 2020, we passed it out of committee, and it did not go any further. Last year, between COVID and, more importantly, the historical horse racing bill, we didn't even take it up. We needed to focus on other things, whether it was the HHR bill, the pandemic. It was a short session. So I haven't really tested the waters on sports betting with our caucus. I do believe that last year's HHR vote provides some help for a lot of members who, let's face it, we haven't had a gaming vote that big since, I'd say, the lottery and charitable gaming amendments of 30 plus years ago. So there's a perception that would be a negative in a lot of places, and a lot of all the rural folks I talked to who voted yes, they tell me they got minimal to no pushback. We have this poll here that we released a few weeks ago. It showed that 65% of Kentuckians support sports betting, 26% oppose. It is even Republicans are 58-34 in favor. The poll also shows that it's a small net positive with regards to votes. I think it's 24% would be more likely, 18% would be less likely to vote for you if you voted yes, and the rest of them just didn't care. So I don't think it's an issue anymore. I think this poll points it out, and hopefully that resonates with many of our members, but we'll find out.
The Cincinnati Bengals made the Super Bowl this year.
Yes.
We don't have sports wagering here. If we did, how different would the situation have been? Would Kentucky have benefited?
Certainly Kentucky would have benefited every day from sports betting. Like I said, the citizens deserve to have the protections of their government, and it certainly would have generated revenue. I think we would have generated a large amount of revenue with the Bengals in the Super Bowl, more than in a typical year. And understand that, what the state will get, it's not like it's a fixed number with pari-mutuel. You tax what the house wins with sports betting. So that number will fluctuate every year. Maybe we wouldn't have benefited if the bettors were right and the line makers were wrong. But in the end, yes. I mean, I think the Bengals brought a lot of attention to the fact that there's people that want to bet on their home team and aren't able to do so.
And on that note, as Ohio was able to pass this, we're continuing to be surrounded by states that allow this. Where are we at as Kentucky? Obviously, you want this to pass, but where are we at as far as these neighboring states continuing to add this?
Sure. As far as neighboring states, every state has legalized it except for Missouri. And that's, a 40-mile border with us, so we're more or less surrounded. I mean, even Tennessee, who doesn't even allow bingo, has sports betting. 33 states and the District of Columbia have legalized it. 30 of those states are operational. Ohio and 2 others have legalized it. It's just not up and running yet. But when you're talking about that many states, it's a bipartisan issue. Okay, every state that legalizes it is not Republican or Democrat. It goes both ways. And for those states that have legalized it, especially the Republican states, I mean, this is, people like to talk about freedom. Well, this is freedom. This is government getting out of the way of allowing adults to make adult decisions. This is government standing in the way of an enterprise that exists. And I mean, all this has happened in 4 years since the Supreme Court ruling. So it has taken no time to get here. And so, I think from that regard, it's pretty clear that this shouldn't be a partisan issue.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you that
I would love to answer that question, but I don't know. We've been close in the past, and I imagine it'll be close again this year. Certainly, the votes are there on the House floor. It's a matter of, like discussing before, getting my fellow Republicans to see the importance of it, the freedom aspect, the need to provide support and protections for our citizens. I'm hopeful, but I've learned that I may like and want to legalize sports betting, but I may not be the best line maker ever. So. I'm not going to speak for the Senate, but I think I've felt comfortable in past years with our chances in the Senate. But again, I'm not speaking for them in any way, shape, or form.
What are the penalties for violating the gray machine prohibition?
We don't change the penalties in the gray machine bill. And did you want to answer that, or do you want to let me take over?
Great.
All right, good. We don't change the penalties. We've heard a lot from prosecutors and sheriffs that these things have shown up. The operators of these gray machines have said they're legal, and they wanted some direction from the legislature, and this is the direction we're giving them, which is basically, to boil down what the bill's going to say. It's if it's not expressly made legal by the charitable gaming, by lottery, or by the racing commission, they're not legal. And then it'll be up to the locals to find them and prosecute them. The bill's also going to request or direct, I should say, the state police to create a task force to go after these machines. And you know what? There's gray machines, and then there's not so gray machines. There's been, illegal slot machines dotting the state for years. And frankly, I'd love to see those attacked with as much, if not more, vigor.
You talk about bipartisan support. I was wondering if Representative Jenkins could come to the podium to just speak on behalf of.
I like the purple.
You like the
Was that for me?
That was for you.
Okay.
This announcement today.
Thank you. I think I am speaking for myself and not for the caucus at this point, because many of these we have not taken to caucus yet. I am very much in support of the sports gaming bill. I think I've been a past co-sponsor of it. I have voted for it before. The other pieces the caucus needs to look at, certainly we're interested in the gray machines. We want to look at that to test its constitutionality. We want to, again, look at the HHR bill. I think in general we have a caucus that supports adults making decisions for themselves without interference. So there'll be more probably from our caucus to come later. Thank you.
On sports betting, previous bills have had a in-person requirement for registration for mobile accounts. Is that in here? And then also the news that Churchill Downs had last week with them pulling Twin Spires online, did that affect anything with your bill?
We removed the 18-month provision, and as soon as it's up and going, you'll be able to download whatever app you like, as long as you're in the state of Kentucky. And no, it did not.
As far as the pari-mutuel modernization bill, can you speak to the logic behind the decisions to kind of streamline the tax rates there as far as the historical horse racing thing?
Well, I think it's important that, look, the rates were set at a time when the rates made sense. You know, when we set the rate for ADW at 0.5%, it was a fledgling industry. It is the only growing part of horse racing now. You know, live is not going up, ADW is going up. And I think when I explained it to people in this way, I could be at, let's say, Turfway when it opens. I'll pick my own facility. Next December, you could stand there and watch a race in person when they start running and have their new facility. And I could watch the race, bet it on my phone, and it would be taxed at 0.5%. If I went to a window, it would be taxed at 1.5%. If I went through the HHR facility, it would be taxed, and played one of the machines, it would be taxed at 1.5%. If I saw a race up on the screen at Gulfstream and bet it, well, if I bet it on my phone, it would be 0.5%. But if I bet it in person at a window or at a machine, it'd be 3%. I don't think that makes sense anymore. I don't think most people think it makes sense anymore. And so that's part of the reason why I want to equalize them. It raises revenue from the ADW, and which at that point there was a lot of concern from individuals on both sides that not enough money is being generated from these machines, and the focus was, well, you should raise the rate on HHR, and we can get into the details one day, and I'm sure we will, because the discussion will come up on the House floor about what the correct rate is, and we had those discussions, and the group that provided the concerns about the rate, I had them come to the pari-mutuel task force and asked them about their thoughts. They gave the thoughts, said it should be higher. I asked them specifically for a recommendation, and they didn't have one, and I've not gotten one yet. So I think that goes to the point of saying that this is probably a fair rate, and certainly we know that it's doing wonders right now for our purses, and it's doing wonders right now for our general fund. And I tried to find a creative way, and I think it's going to work to get more money in without raising the tax on those machines, and therefore, if you raise the tax on it, you're going to get less of it. When players get less money back, they don't keep playing, and every dollar that goes in is where the money comes from. It's called churn. You keep turning that money over and over. That generates more tax dollars. So I think it's in a good spot, and I think the important part from that discussion was that we generate more revenue, and we're doing that.
And the Family Foundation has been a big against this one, opposition. They say, quote, it's predatory gambling industry that Kentucky families shouldn't have to deal with. Could you respond to that opposition?
It goes to what I've said and what Representative Jenkins said, which is, are we going to let adults make adult decisions or not? And I think, look, they're making them regularly in traveling to other states, frankly, for casinos as well as the wager on sports. I think we're up to over $6 billion in 2021 wagered on pari-mutuel, and $1.5 billion in the lottery. And honestly, I don't know what the number for charitable is, but that's a lot of money. And the American Gaming Association estimates $2 billion is wagered illegally on sports every year. So it's happening. And we can either bury our heads in the sand and tell people that they're not grown adults and they can't make these decisions, or, like I've said, we give them the opportunity to do so. We tax it, we regulate it, and we make sure it's done above board and give people the protections from their government that they deserve.
For a state that has sports betting,
Yes.
are you surprised that Kentucky has not yet legalized sports betting?
Look, I come from northern Kentucky where it's a no-brainer. So I don't know that I'm surprised. My constituents are surprised. And I think it's people in other parts of the state, they have a different constituency. So I respect that. I get only one vote, just like the other 99 House members. So I have to do a better job of persuading, and my friends up here have to do a better job of helping persuade people.
Do you have an idea for how quickly any of these bills will move?
I don't. We have to have a conversation with our caucus, but I'm not having a licensing and occupations meeting this Wednesday, but you never know what might happen next Wednesday.
Any chance that any of these bills could get folded into Representative Petrie's tax modernization bill?
I guess anything can happen, but that's not been a point of discussion. All right. Thank you all for coming. We appreciate it.